Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Whining and Rants. This is episode 3, and this episode is on cancel culture. I thought I recorded this episode a couple times, but every time I look at my phone after I'm done talking, there's this notification on the screen for something stupid. So this is like my 4th time doing this. Tonight, cancel culture is the topic because I have wanted to talk about this for a while. Mostly because it's something that constantly comes up, and it's something that hits my nerve every time it comes up because I feel like the conversations around it are dishonest. And I think there is dishonest because people have decided that young people specifically cannot choose what they do and do not want to engage in. When we look at celebrities or even brands, that is a consumption of a product. Even though they are people, they have formed themselves into this product to sell. And we have decided as a society that young people, millennials and Gen Z, whoever, they can't choose what they do and do not like. It's perfectly fine to say I don't like Walmart because I don't like the clothes they sell, but apparently you can't say you don't like Walmart if they act in malicious ways against their employees. You can't say you don't like X celebrity because X celebrity said something homophobic or racist. Cancel culture has been used to silence people, even though we claim that we don't like cancel culture because it silences people. We should look at why something is cancel culture and why something else isn't. Why is it okay for J.K. Rowling to throw a hissy fit because she saw a poster that said people with uterus, but the people who say, "Hey J.K., could you not be transphobic about that? Could you just chill out?" Why are they the ones trying to cancel her and she's not the one trying to cancel trans women or trans men? Why? Because she has this weird thing with trans people for some reason. She just decided to go on these random Twitter rants about trans people all the time. And she gets upset. She got upset at Stephen King, because he said trans women and women, and she immediately unfollowed him and said that people were attacking her. So why is what she's doing not canceling trans women, but Stephen King or even her fans saying, "Hey, could you not be this way?" Why are they canceling her? Which also I think is dishonest because we don't look at how leftist ideas, and a lot of these ideas that are being called cancel culture are leftist ideas. Why are leftist ideas being dishonestly construed with systemic oppression when leftists are constantly systemically oppressed and systemically quiet by the government and actual people with power? With financial power, with power to control jobs, which goes back into financial power, people with political power. Why are we conflating a bunch of people on Twitter to somebody with political power to arrest somebody? When we look back at the Black Panther movement, when we look back at counterculture anti-war movements, when we look back at these things, you can see that people who were systemically prosecuted, people who were in jail, people who were murdered. Fred Hampton was murdered for having beliefs that Black people should be in a better position, that people of color, oppressed people in general, should be in a better position than what they are now. He was a Marxist, so he was a communist. He had all these things, these ideas, and he was persecuted, literally persecuted for these ideas. Somebody on Twitter saying they're not going to buy your product, you're not being persecuted. You're being they're choosing not to consume what you have, but you're not being persecuted. You're perfectly fine. You can go home and go to your bed at night. If you lost your job, you can probably find another job. A lot of these people who have lost their jobs only temporarily lose their jobs. We can look at Nick Cannon. People got upset at Nick Cannon a couple weeks ago, and I think they were rightfully upset about his comments, his anti-Semitic comments. But people got upset that he was fired from MTV when he still has a job. Nick Cannon is still a millionaire. Nick Cannon still probably has a nice mansion. Nick Cannon is perfectly fine. Me, you, and Nick Cannon are not all at the same place. We are not the same people. He was not persecuted. He is perfectly fine. He went back to his 20-room mansion or whatever the hell he has, and he slept on his bed comfortably that night. He also still has other shows. He has money saved up. I'm sure if Nick Cannon goes broke because he lost Wild 'N Out, that means he can't save money, which a lot of these celebrities accuse people of not being able to do. Side note. But yeah, he's perfectly fine. He's not been persecuted. Somebody who was persecuted was Asada Shakur for also being a Marxist and believing in radical Black feminism. She was persecuted. She was accused of killing a cop unprovoked, and she has to run away from her own country because she was persecuted for her beliefs. Angela Davis was persecuted for her beliefs. She was thrown in jail and accused on trumped up charges. Fred Hampton was shot in his bed. Many Black Panthers were persecuted. We had anti-war people who were persecuted. You had lawyers who identified as communists who were not allowed to join the bar, or they were dismissed from the bar. You have actual evidence of systemic persecution from the government, and we are talking about today, we're talking about people who are saying they don't want to buy Jay-Z's product because they don't like his capitalist ideas. Like, that's not counseling somebody, or that's not, it doesn't matter if it is or isn't counseling. It's not important. It is not nothing out of the ordinary. It's more like a boycott. The boycotts back in the day were, of course, unpopular. But if somebody from today's were to look at the boycotts and be like, oh no, if they cancel the buses, I would call them an idiot. Like, that's just point blank period. Like, people have the choice to do what they do and not want to do. And that's why the conversation is dishonest to me, because we aren't having a conversation about the protesters who are being persecuted, people who are being thrown in jail today for their political beliefs, people who are being thrown in jail on trumped up charges, be it felony assault against the officer when they clearly were not doing anything, people who are being chased down because they had a picture at a protest and the officers tracked them down and arrested them because of their political beliefs, because of something they did politically. There are people who may be sitting in jail for who knows how long as a result of this protest because of their political beliefs. That is counseling somebody to me. Counseling somebody to me is not me saying that I'm not going to buy Camila Cabello's album because she said the N-word a bunch of times on Twitter. No, that is not what counseling is. That is not a persecution of her. That is not something that we should deem a culture. That is just something that happens with consumerism, because we as a society think of everything in a consumable way. I do not want to consume these products. We can look back in the day to the Hollywood blacklist. We can look at the House of Un-American Activities, the House Committee of Un-American Activities. We can look back to those things and see there was actual prosecution of people with leftist ideas. We can look back to the Reagan days when his ignoring of LGBTQ issues resulted in the AIDS pandemic. Like, we can look at all these things and say this was actually counseling people. His actions his homophobic actions resulted in people dying. Those people were screwed by the government. Those people were not just persecuted in a legal way, but they were persecuted in a way that resulted in them being dead because of who they were. You have people who you have even politicians today. We can look at the Squad, we can look at AOC, we can look at Rashida and Representative Omar, and we can see that they say things that should be perfectly fine for anybody to say, because people say things critically of other politicians all the time, but for some reason when they say it, it's an issue. When Rashida booed Hillary Clinton, there was an issue. When Representative Omar confronted Elliot Abrams at the when he was being interviewed for something at some nonsense ceremony, House of Representatives thing, when she like went against him, she questioned him. She didn't even go against him. She simply questioned him on his past actions and why we should believe him today. I'm going to do something on Elliot Abrams, Kissinger, and all those folks later. But Elliot Abrams did a lot of awful things that resulted in thousands, if not tens, hundreds of thousands of people dying. And she simply questioned, why should we believe you? Because you lied before, and that resulted in people being murdered in the street. That resulted in genocide of certain groups of people, attempted genocide in certain groups of people. So why should we believe you today? People accused her of trying to cancel Elliot Abrams. People accused her of being confrontational against Elliot Abrams. This man who is perfectly fine. He's an old man. Probably going to be on his deathbed soon. He's old. He has lived a fine life. I'm sure he has received human rights awards from some right-wing human rights awards society. But all she did was question him. And then next thing you know, you have people on Twitter, like, it doesn't even matter if they were liberals or conservative. You have pundits on Twitter saying that Representative Omar is trying to cancel Elliot Abrams. And again, that is something that they don't use for people who are not left-leaning people who are not young people. Other people get the right to say, I don't like this, and then they move on. They're able to move on, and they don't have to constantly repeat why they don't like this person. But she, a representative, is accused of trying to counsel this man who has done horrific things to society, and his life is perfectly fine despite of that. So it's like we have these real issues that are happening. We have people who are being actually persecuted for their political beliefs, for their sexualities, for their race even, and we don't care about them. We don't talk about them. We only talk about celebrities because we live in a society that's not only obsessed with celebrity, but this is obsessed with the idea that powerful people should not be held accountable, and the idea that Twitter or Instagram or whatever social media that people are using as their vector is allowing these celebrities or whatever to be held accountable scares the crap out of them. Like, they're terrified that people, because they're used to being the voice for us, but we're saying, hey, we have our own voice, and honestly, we don't really like you that much now that you're actually talking to us through these mediums, through these vectors. We don't really like what you have to say, and we don't have to consume you, but now that we know that what you're like as a person. And I don't understand why that's such a big idea. I mean, I understand as a society why, but I don't understand as a person why, because I just don't get it. I understand in society, we live in a society of once powerful people. We demand to have these heroes. We demand to idolize certain people. We demand to deify certain people. So when you cross a deity, you're going to get pushed back by that deity's followers. And that's what's happening. I mean, people haven't liked a few things that Beyonce have done lately. Nobody's like trying to cancel Beyonce. They just don't like what she has. And then you have her own mother coming onto Instagram and accusing people of bashing her. They're not bashing her. She's creating art, and people are criticizing the art. I love Beyonce, but that doesn't mean that she is above criticism. I don't believe that just because she puts out something that is pro-black mean we cannot criticize what she put out, because it may not be good. Like, it's her being Beyonce doesn't mean she doesn't put out not good stuff. It may not be up to par of what somebody thinks something should be up to par of. And that is perfectly fine. That is normal. That is a normal thing for people to be able to do. I'm excited for her new project. I want to see what it is, but if I don't like it, then I won't like it. Why would I not be able to voice my criticism of this very powerful woman? And it's because we have deified her and made her into this thing, this person, this being that cannot be criticized. And again, I love her, but if I don't like what she puts out, I feel like I should be able to say what I don't like about her. But to see that her mother comes on Instagram and goes a hissy fit about because people on Twitter doesn't like what she put out, or the preview of what she put out recently, it was silly to me. I'm like, why are we doing all of this? Why is this very powerful group of people attacking these people on Twitter? I mean, if they don't want to listen to it, they don't want to listen to it. If they want to speak about why they don't want to listen to it, why can't they? You're speaking, you have your medium to speak, so why can't they speak? Because you have decided that you and your daughter speak for them, and that's messed up. And that's not, they're not, why isn't if Miss Tina attacks somebody on Twitter, on Instagram, why isn't she counseling those people? Again, it's not something that seems to work both ways. It only works if I say I don't like you because of some left-leaning idea. I don't like that Beyonce's project may sidestep the movement, whatever it is people are saying about it. I don't even think I watched the preview myself because I was like, I don't care enough. But if they have this criticism of it, why are they counseling Beyonce but you're not counseling them? I don't know. But yeah, this is my mini rant on cancel culture. I'm trying to keep these short. I think I will talk about this again because it's going to keep coming up. And I also just like to talk about it because I believe that it's important to have, challenge the mainstream narrative of what's going on.